Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. It's been a while since I've jammed some green-black Turbodepths, so I thought I'd have a go at it again. So this is a deck I've played a lot on my channel, and I've put a lot of work and effort into building this deck, and I have a Patreon tier which has a full 30-page guide to this deck, the card choices, the sideboarding choices, matchup information. So if you want to have a look at that, check out my Patreon in the description below. I'm not going to talk too much about the card choices here because A, it's in the Patreon, and B, I've played this deck so many times that you probably get an idea by now. We'll do a quick overrun of how this deck works. Essentially, we can only win the game via making a 2020 Merit Lage creature. So to do this, we have Dark Depths, and we either remove all the counters with Hexmage, or we have Thespian Stage which copies it, but then the copy doesn't have any counters and makes it 2020. That's basically it. That's how we win the game. The rest of it is either finding that combo using tutors like Crop Rotation and Sylvan Scrying, powering out quickly using mana acceleration like Elvish Spirit Guide and Lotus Petal, and then protecting it via things like Pithing Needle on Caracas or Wasteland, etc. Not of this world to just blank a single targeted spell like a Swords of Plowshares or whatever. Crop Rotating for Sejiri Steppe, or discarding our opponent's hand with our suite of Thoughtseizes and Duresses. That's pretty much it. We got a few silver bullets kicking around. So we've got a Ghost Quarter, we've got a Bojuka Bog, we've got these two Boseiju which are very good. They can take out problem lands or problem permanents like Ensnaring Bridge, etc. As well as being a green source that actually casts a lot of our spells that we need to do. Sideboard wise, we got some big haymakers here. 4 Leyline in the Void. This will buy us enough time to win the game against reanimated decks most of the time. And that's basically what it's there for, right? Also, Ouphe all spells and stuff like that. The decks that go quicker than us are the ones that tend to beat us. So this really helps in those matchups. What also helps in those matchups is Null Rod and Collector Ouphe for the fast matchups like Storm that are relying on lots of 0-drop artifacts. These can just shut them down nicely. We have a single slot dedicated to Painter. This is basically a thing that's almost always going to come up and buy you time against Painter and force them to be a 3-card combo deck where they need Graveyard Hate as well as the 2 pieces. So for 1 slot on your sideboard, it's hard to beat the value this gives you. Then we have 3 Steely Resolve. If our opponent's way of winning the game is to interact with our Merit Lage, we're going to use our Steely Resolve to stop them doing that. And then we have 4 Abrupt Decay because Mages of the Moon, Opposition Agent, and Blood Moon are cards that we need to defeat. This can defeat all of them, and because we're a black-green build, we've got fetch lands and basics that we can use to make sure that we can cast this, as well as these pieces of fast mana that can cast the Abrupt Decay. Alright, that's pretty much it. I'm going to jump into a league now. So like, comment, subscribe, do these things, but let's play some Legacy. We are on the play for round 1. Not a bad place to be. What does our hand do? It does not access a Dark Depths in any way, and our opening hands pretty much have to give us a way to find Dark Depths because we can't win without it. So this is going to have to be a mulligan. Our deck does mulligan well, so that's not too much of an issue. So this has access to a Dark Depths, but we don't have any way of comboing with it. We'd just be relying on being a deck where these Duresses are going to be useful. I think we're just going to mulligan again. Okay, this is a turn 3 Merit Lage here. So 2 cards go on the bottom. I think we get rid of... this is tricky. I think I'd rather have a Thoughtseize than a Not of This World. We need to keep the Crop Rotation, which means we're probably getting rid of the Spirit Guide here. Means we're probably starting the game off with the Urborg. This means that if we draw a Hexmage, we can deploy Depths on turn 2. So let's Thoughtseize our opponent and hope we don't see a Wasteland. Alright, that's not a Wasteland, but it's also not great for us. So they have no way of reanimating creatures. Sorry, they got 1 way of reanimating creatures and 1 way of putting creatures into the bin. So I guess we're supposed to be taking the Entomb here to stop them putting anything into the bin. This is going to be a tough matchup. We're going to lose our Crop Rotation here. But Dark Depths, importantly, can't be discarded, and this is the harder part of the combo to find because our Crop Rotations and Sylvan Scryings find Thespian Stage and Dark Depths, but we also have the Hexmage as well. So there's more ways of finding the other half, which is why it's important to keep openers that have access to Dark Depths via either a tutor or having it in hand. There's a Swamp from our opponent, and they're passing. Alright, Thespian Stage. Okay. Don't hate that one. I am actually going to play out the Bayou here. If I play out the Bayou, it does cost us a turn down the line. But I guess if they So we're going to play out the Bayou in case our opponent can reanimate some stuff. So we have crop rotation. But what we will do here is we'll crop rotate this into a combo piece if they discard us. But this just gives us more protection against our opponent killing us. We can do this at instant speed to make our combo when the time comes. And unmask, targeting themselves. Okay, we let this resolve. And they get rid of the Grizzlebrand, so they have Animate Dead, Polluted Delta, Grief, Bloodstained Mire. Okay, so there's a Bloodstained Mire. If they go for the Animate Dead, we're going to be paid off for how we played this turn. Alright, so we will sacrifice a land. I think it has to be the Bayou here. Where is our little Bojuka? Oh, why is it so tiny? Bojuka Bog. We will exile our opponent's graveyard. No Animate Dead for you. Alright, over to us. Another crop rotation doesn't really do the thing we need it to do, but that's fine. I think I'll play out the Dark Depths here. We can manually remove a counter if we want to. This game's not going to come down to it, so I'm not going to bother clicking through it. But if I was playing a game in paper, I would, because it would take no time at all. There's our Thespian stage, and we'll pass a turn. So we have a 20/20 for our opponent to deal with. They have no creature in their bin. They have a Grief in hand. Faithless Looting is not a bad way to start things off. A Reanimate on Atraxa. That's not great for us, truth be told. Alright, so they have these 10 cards. So we know they've still got the Grief in hand. Let's see what they choose here. Be nice if MTGO would make this automatically show you what they've taken instead of having to click through looking at it, but such is life. So they choose Atraxa, Swamp, Animate Dead, Reanimate, Dark Ritual, Lotus Petal. So they didn't take this one, and they got rid of one of those. Not bad, opponent. So they can Faithless Looting. Right, so we're going to lose our crop rotation here. But we will force a chump block with the Atraxa. Now they can just redeploy it again. But we need to dodge our opponent. So where do they pitch that Grief? A Dark Ritual. Sure, so we need to dodge our opponent making an Archon of Cruelty. Alright. Let's make a 20/20. We'll keep the one without counters. Here comes the big one. And it's over to us. I go to Tex. So I have to chump block here. This gains them 7, so they can just reanimate the Atraxa again. We don't really have another play. Put this Dark Depths in. This at least gives us a potential option of making a second one if they manage to deal with this first one. We're trying to dodge Entomb into Archon of Cruelty. We have just put Atraxa in the graveyard they can reanimate. Alright, so there's the Animate Dead. Okay. No Entomb, please. No Entomb. Okay, we might have dodged it. Again, they do just get to keep doing this over and over again until they find it. Unless we can draw a Sejiri Steppe. The other option we had was to do nothing and just sit there with a Marit Lage and wait till we find a way of punching through. But we don't have any green mana right now, so I don't think that was a wise option to do when our opponent's just got a full grip from Atraxa. Because we could, you know, Sylvan Scrying into Sejiri Steppe, give our guy protection, kill our opponent. They can't attack into us without their guy dying. So, alright, we got a Grief coming in. Alright, we'll just dismiss all these things for now. Alright, so I can see that we've got nothing going on. There's the Entomb. Okay. There's the Reanimate on the scary one. So we lose our Marit Lage, unfortunately. Goodbye, Urborg. So this isn't going to come down to us removing counters with our Dark Depths, so I'm not going to waste my time clicking through that. A Verdant Catacombs. So this is 6, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that is us dead on board. Let's go to game 2. Thought we had it there, but did not quite manage to make it work. So, Leyline on the Void is going to be good here. Our opponent's not going to interact by trying to kill our creatures, so we don't want Not of This World. We don't really need a Ghost Quarter for this matchup either, and these Pithing Needles are pretty miserable. Like, if they can stop them doing Grizzlebrand shenanigans, but that's it. And if they've got a Grizzlebrand in play, things have already gone a bit wrong for us, haven't they? So these are decks that sometimes run Magus of the Moon, which means we need some amount of Abrupt Decay. We do have a Gaea's Blessing, which is graveyard hate, albeit slow. which I think is probably just about worth playing here. And is that enough? Do we want more answers for Mages of the Moon or not? I think on the play we definitely don't, but we might want a third Abrupt Decay on the draw. So what does our hand do? Doesn't really do an awful lot. It's just, let's hope Leyline is good. We haven't got any mana to work with or anything, so I think we're just going to mulligan this one. So what do we have here? We have Thoughtseize and Duress. We have an Abrupt Decay if we need it. We do have access to our Dark Depths. I think we can keep this one. I'm going to get rid of the Abrupt Decay because we're going to sacrifice one of these Urborgs into our crop rotation. Alright, let's start with a Thoughtseize. Okay, so they have one way of reanimating creatures right now. So we will strip that from our opponent. We will deploy our Lotus Petal. And we'll pass the turn. If we have to crop rotate, because they cast a discard effect, then we will. And we'll crop rotate our Urborg into a Dark Depths. Does shut us off of green mana, which is a little bit awkward. But I can live with that. So if we don't have access to Dark Depths, we can't win the game. Such is the nature of our deck. Grief pitching Atraxa. Let's turn this into a Dark Depths. So we're going to lose this Duress. But they can't take this last card unless they have an Archon of Cruelty. And if they put an Archon of Cruelty into play this turn, we're dead anyway. And the crop rotation wasn't really going to serve any other purpose other than getting this anyway. And it's much better to have this in play than it is to have a Duress in hand. Even though we do want to interact with our opponent on this matchup as best we can. We've already done that once, so. They pitched a Grizzlebrand. And a Polluted Tales that we didn't know about. Okay. Hexmage? Not a Hexmage. Alright. We did have to mulligan a fair bit in this matchup. But we'll see how we get on. There's a Lotus Petal. Flashing back Faith is Looting. Pretty good. This is why the Black-Red Reanimator is just so much better than the Blue-Black or the Mono-Black in my opinion. I think Faith is Looting is just an incredibly good Magic the Gathering card. It's actually one of my favourites, to be honest. So there we are. Right, so they're reanimating Grizzlebrand. Okay. I think we're going to die in the very near future here. Now, there's no point holding that crop rotation because we're never going to... They're going to take the crop rotation. So let's see how bad it is for us. Our opponent is on 5 life, but they do have 7 cards in hand, which is quite a lot of cards. They don't even need to string anything together here. The onus is on us to draw a thing that can actually interact with our opponent here. Sylvan Scrying, that's not the one. So the chances of us losing this game are about 90%. Ironically, if we'd have kept that bad Leyline hand, we might have been alright in this matchup. Because they didn't have any wear tear this time. Sure, you can unmask us, take our Sylvan Scrying. Yep, there it goes. We get bashed for 7. Are they gonna gain 7? Gonna pay 7 life and make a guy try and combo their way into another piece? I think it's worth doing because that means they can kill us on their next turn. Should be relatively easy to do, especially when they've got another 7 cards if they really want them. Because we didn't really deal in chunks of damage other than 20 for the most part. So they can happily pay 7 life again. Reanimate on the Archon of Cruelty. So we cannot win the game now, right? Because these both attack us. We take 3. We go to 5. Then we can block this. And then we're dead to that. Obviously they've also got an Atraxa there. Yeah, we just got a full-on reanimatoring there. So we had a Bojuka Bog in the game, we had some hand disruption and stuff, but yeah, there's a reason why Black-Red Reanimator is, I think it's the most played deck in Legacy right now. So, it's a good deck. That's why we have the Leylines in the board, but we didn't have one in that game. I think keeping the double Duress hand was fine because we'd already mulliganed as well. Alright, let's go on to round 2. Alright, we're into round 2 now. Our opening hand doesn't make a 20-20. We'll need more cards if we want to, so I think we're going to mulligan and find something a bit better. This would count as better. This is a turn 2 20-20 with Pithing Needle for Wasteland. I will keep this. We'll throw back this Sylvan Scrying. We are on the draw, but this hand is a pretty nice one. It can fall apart a little bit, but our core pieces can't be discarded, which is part of the reason I like this deck. Okay. Thespian stage. We have a surprise spirit guide if we need to pay for this, like for a days. The question is, do we play out a Lotus Petal now? I don't think we do. We want it as a surprise for our opponent that they're going to get rocked next turn. Like, there could be a white deck with Prismatic Ending that they'll use on our Lotus Petal. They can use it on our Pithing Needle, but it doesn't really matter because we can then make our guy next turn anyway. But if they were to do it on a Lotus Petal, that would change our turn mass by a whole turn. This is where they drop something like a Caracas. Alright, a Volcanic Island. And no other plays. Sure. Interesting. It's a Sejiri Steppe, not an unhelpful one there. Play our Lotus Petal. Play our Dark Depths. So we have the combos sewn up right now. We want our opponent to tap low, but a red-blue deck tends not to have many ways apart from a single Brazen Borrower to interact. Now, they might not just be a blue-red deck. The Snow-Covered Island is a little bit of a tease that they might be playing something with Ice Fangs. So hopefully our opponent does something right now. Hopefully something that doesn't kill us would be great. A Lotus Petal. Alright, our opponent is probably in the Sneak and Show ballpark. A Show and Tell. Okay, I guess we'll put in our Thespian stage. A Sneak Attack. Please don't put in an Emrakul. We cannot beat Emrakul. It's an Emrakul, so we're going to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to lose all of our permanents. They're going to put us in the dirt. What is the purpose of playing this game on for longer? I don't think there is one. I think we're going to concede. That'll do. Like, we're technically not dead. They have to find their next threat. But they're a blue deck, and we won't have any permanents. If we had a land in hand, I might be more tempted to carry on. Alright, so for this matchup, we don't really need our Bojuka Bog. We don't really need our Ghost Quarter. We don't really need these Not of This Worlds that much either. And I think all we want here is some Abrupt Decays, because our opponent is a Blood Moon deck. And they also have Vesuvian Drifter these days. So I used to play 3 Abrupt Decays from the sideboard here. But since then I've trimmed another Not of This World for the 4th Decay because of how prevalent the Sylvan Drifter is. We need the Pithing Needles because Sneak Attack is how we lose this game. Like, if they cast Show and Tell, it usually works out alright for us. But if they cast Sneak Attack, that tends to be bad because they can just annihilate our opponents and we can't play around that. We can't, like, just put in our big guy and try and win because we won't have enough permanents. We're just going to get rocked. So, here is our sideboarding. Okay, seems alright. We can keep this. I want to play out the Bayou to begin with so that we have access to an Abrupt Decay if our opponent has a turn 1 Magus of the Moon. Good thing about Abrupt Decay, your opponent can't really interact with it. So if you need the thing dead, they're not countering it, so you should be alright. So this is a little bit of a slower one. But we need to play around Magus of the Moon as well as their ability to just kill us. Now, a Show and Tell can accelerate our curve a little bit. Because if they Show and Tell and put a creature in, and we put in the last thing we needed to go off, we can make our 20/20 a turn earlier and then attack with it. But here we are with the Bayou, and we'll pass. Would have liked some sort of disruption there. But we've got this Abrupt Decay, so we can hit a Drifter or we can hit a Magus. I imagine they're just going to cantrip on turn 1. Right, nothing on turn 1. They're just all rolled up already. That's a bit worrying. We'll put in this way. If our opponent casts Show and Tell, we can put in a Dark Depths, and then we have access to making a 20/20. And then on our turn, we can Sylvan Scrying for Sejiri Steppe to win the game. A Scalding Tarn and nothing. Alright. Just going to stare at each other for a bit. A Duress. I do like the Duress here. It does cost us making a 20/20. It also stops us being able to play around a Blood Moon. I think we're going to pass. And then if our opponent makes a Magus of the Moon, because if we Duress them and they have Magus of the Moon, then we probably just lose here. We got an end of turn Brainstorm, sure. Whereas if we hold up what we have here, we can interact a little bit. And the downside is if our opponent has a Sneak Attack that they can play and activate this turn, then we're going to be in trouble. But you can't play around everything, and I'd rather play around the Moon effect that will definitely kill us Whereas the sneak attack is multiple cards they need, because they need to get up to 5 mana to actually put something in this turn. They probably think they have another turn. Right, an Ancient Tomb. Are they going to show and tell in a sneak attack here? Oh, there's just a sneak attack. Alright. Let's make the thing. No counter spells. Alright, so that did alright for us. We haven't seen the Magus yet, but we haven't seen a lot because this matchup has been going very quickly. I think we're still going to roll it back with the 4 Abrupt Decays, which is something that I'm trying these days because of the Sylvan Drifter. And I believe it's still the thing that MTGO does where you can pay $25 or whatever it is for a couple of weeks and play basically anything you want. So people are more likely playing with the Sylvan Drifters now because they're going to be easier to get hold of as well. And yeah, let's submit again. So this is also a good time for people to try out the Vesuvian Drifter before having to... Oh, this is... Oh, we do have access to, I think. So, sorry, like I was saying, it's a good time for people to try out the Vesuvian Drifter before buying them themselves because they can do it quite cheaply. So we can shut off Sneak Attack. We can go and get our Dark Depths. This will need to resolve. We have 2 answers for Sneak Attack. I think I'm going to keep this. We have 2 pieces of acceleration, so we can go relatively fast. If we draw an Urborg for our first turn, then we can go off on turn 2. But we will have to resolve some spells to do that. We don't have the free roll of just playing out lands and then winning the game. Right, Flood Strand being cracked. There's a Volcanic Island. There's a Ponder. Okay. I didn't have it all sewn up this time. They shuffled their library of the Ponder. That's good news for us. Playing out a Lotus Petal. Have an Abrupt Decay. I will play out our Bayou. And I will play out a Pithing Needle. We can pay around a Daze. Alright. Sneak attack, please. This is the one time they don't sneak attack us, I guess, right? We can instant speed do a Boseiju because we have the 2 Spirit Guides. That would cause us a bit of trouble. We have the Boseiju, which can blow up a Blood Moon, if that's what they have. We can Sylvan Scrying for a black source, if we need to. And then use the other Sylvans, the Elvish Spirit Guide, to get our Abrupt Decay, if they have a Magus. So we're not shields down entirely here. Right, a Brainstorm probably means we're... Like, they could just drop a Soul Land and go here. Right, a Ponder. They still haven't played their second land for this turn. Oh, okay. No land. Interesting if true. A Vampire Hexmage. So part of the problem we have is that we don't have black for the Hexmage right now. But I think we do play out this Boseiju. And we will cast a Sylvan Scrying. Don't want to daze this, we can pay. Okay, so we'll go and get Dark Depths. Step 1. If we find a Thespian stage, we can go off soon. If we find a crop rotation, we can crop rotate our Boseiju into a black source for a Hexmage. A Brainstorm, sure. I imagine our opponent's hand has the pieces they need if they kept it. It's just lacking the lands to get there. Oh wow, they Brainstormed not themselves. It's good news for us. A Bayou. Okay, I think we'll play this Bayou out. And then... Are we going to play out a Hexmage right now? Or are we going to hold up the ability to Abrupt Decay? I think we have to hold up the ability to Abrupt Decay. Just in case they have Soul Land into Magus. There we go, there's a Soul Land. Show and tell. Yeah, we're being punished for the land we put in here a bit, aren't we? Okay. We're going to put in Omniscience. So they got an Emrakul? They do have an Emrakul. We are dead. Actually, how many permanents do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, yeah, we're just dead here. It didn't really matter which land we played then. Yep. So this is what I mean about some of the combo decks being able to beat us, because they have a so Show and Tell has a similar sort of clock to us usually, and They have blue spells, so we have to navigate some of their counters a bit. But they have big Haymaker. So sneak attack we have covered, which is normally the thing. If they show and tell in an Emrakul, it's not that bad for us usually. But the Omniscience is just backbreaking. So we are, unfortunately, 0-2. Not a great run so far, but let's keep it going. So this opening hand has access to one of our things, but it's very slow, doesn't really get there. I think we need to mulligan. We don't really have the requisite mana to play this game, so we'll mulligan again. Yeah, we can keep this one. So how hard do we want to go is the question. I think we'll put back 1 Petal and 1 Scrying here. Or we can just keep both the petals and try and go for turn 1 this way, which doesn't use our crop rotation. So the question is, do we want to make sure we have green mana, or do we want to make sure we have like another thing? I think I'd rather make sure we have green mana. So we're going to go for trying to make the turn 1 2020. Rustvale Bridge. Don't really know what this deck is going to be. Alright, we'll play out Dark Depths. We'll play out Lotus Petal. Play out Lotus Petal. Play out Vampire Hexmage. Do I think our opponent is going to have Wastelands in their red-white deck? Red-white artifact deck. If they're playing artifacts, they're more likely to have something like Urza's Saga than a Wasteland. So I think we will hold off. Could get punished here. But I'm thinking, why would you run the artifact land? So the question here is, do we just make the 2020 into what could be a very obvious source to Plowshares? Or do we try and find a single black source for this Duress? I think I'm going to do that. Did not find the single black source for Duress. Okay. Alright, we'll just nip in for a little bit of damage. Are we playing this Boseiju out now? I don't think so. Our opponent could be some sort of Snaring Bridge type deck. Alright, a City of Traitors. A Lion's Eye Diamond. I have no idea what our opponent's doing. We could lose this game due to just not knowing what our opponent's doing. Oh, okay. We're looking at Bomberman here. I see. So they have infinite mana now. And then they have Walking Ballista. Alright. Yeah. So if you're unfamiliar with this combo, what they do is they activate this. They play this Lion's Eye Diamond. They get 3 white mana for it. And they keep doing this over and over and over and over again until they have infinite mana. And then they play the Walking Ballista. Alright, so we got punished for not going for it there because our opponent had Swords to Plowshares mana open. And we didn't know what we were up against. Alright. Thankfully, we've got some good tools for this. We've got Null Rods. We've got Collector Ouphe. We've got Leyline in the Void. These are all things that seem pretty useful in this matchup, since they are a graveyard-based combo deck. However, this is a lot of cards. We also have Pithing Needle, which can hit Bomberman as well. I don't think we're going to be needing these Not of This World. Maybe we don't even need the Leylines if we've got the Pithing Needles, because they kind of do similar things. And this is just a better draw for us than the Leylines tend to be. And then we just need to trim 1 card. We do need to go fast, so I don't want to remove these things. Is Ghost Quarter going to be useful in this matchup? I'm not entirely convinced it is. They might have some way of putting a creature that they can block with. Right, we'll move the Ghost Quarter. Yeah, we were punished for playing KG around a... If I had known what our opponent's deck was, I would have gone for it. But it just was completely unknown to me what they were doing. Right, so this opening hand, we've got Disruption, we've got our combo sewn up. I'm going to keep this. We could go for a turn 2 combo by playing this out, then playing this and using our fast mana, but I think we're better off Thoughtseizing our opponent first and taking it 1 turn slower. Elite Spellbinder, Lotus Petal. Walking Ballista. So I don't really care about too many of these. If we take the Lotus Petal, they have no white mana. That seems like the easy pick. And because they've shown us that, I will play this Lotus Petal. Now you might be asking yourself, didn't you board in Null Rods and Collector Ouphe with your Lotus Petal deck? And yes, we did, because it hurts them a lot more than it hurts us. Because we could use the Lotus Petal to ramp our guy out on turn 1. And us losing a Lotus Petal versus them losing the whole thing their deck does is it's a pretty good trade in my opinion. So play out this Thespian stage. Now the question is, what can they get out of their Urza's Saga? So they might be able to get something that disrupts us, like a Pithing Needle. There's an Ancient Tomb that we know about. A crop rotation. Does that do anything for us here? So I think in response to the Urza's Saga, we're going to make our 2020, and then we can hold up crop rotation with this surprise Elvish Spirit Guide. Yep, make your 1/1. So when they put this on the stack, that's when we move here. So this way we dodge Pithing Needle. And if they have something else, we can crop rotate our thing away. But we can't get the Bojuka Bog, which is a little bit awkward. There's a Lion's Eye Diamond. There's a Cavern of Souls. Okay. So we have an emergency Sejiri Steppe if we need it. Elite Spellbinder. This is kind of an interesting one, because they'll take the crop rotation, which means we can't go and get Sejiri Steppe with it. We don't have a way of getting this guy out of the way, so I guess we just have to let this hit us. We can... This makes it 2 more expensive? Yes, we can just cast this next turn if they take the crop rotation. So we can go and get Sejiri Steppe next turn. We just got to hope the 2 cards in their hand don't do anything. Right, where's our card? It's hidden it there. Oh, okay, we can just draw the Sejiri Steppe. Sure, I'll take that. Alright, so we won that one. So we would have won the first game if we knew what our opponent was playing and didn't sort of just jam into it. Do we want to do anything different now? We've seen that they've got like a bunch of white guys, possibly some initiative-based stuff in there as well. I don't think so. We also have Pithing Needle for Urza's Saga, which does make me question whether or not we want this Ghost Quarter for Urza's Saga as well. But I think these Pithing Needles are just going to be better for that. So we're going to submit again. Seems like they've got a lot of stuff that works around their combo. They're not just all in on the combo. So this does give us access. We have double Thoughtseize into Sylvan Scrying. Is that good enough? That's very slow for this matchup. And we have this Bojuka Bog that's a bit rubbish. I think we're going to mulligan. There's something a bit more explosive going on. Yeah, we can keep this. We have the combo covered. We can get rid of the Sejiri Steppe. So we can cover their combo. I see a chalice. A Walking Ballista for 1. Sure. That's fine. Alright. They give me no reason to believe I shouldn't be getting a Bayou here. Let's duress our opponent. Khan the Great Creator. No, thank you. Then we'll play out our Lotus Petal here, in case we need an emergency crop rotation. So there's the plateau. They can Elite Spellbinder us, but we have 2 crop rotations, so that's not the end of the world. Them not getting there as a Saga online is pretty nice for us too. I don't think the clock they're presenting is good enough for us to worry about, but they might be able to gain some life in an awkward way. This stops us doing the play that I wanted to do next turn, which was play this, go and get stage. So we take 1. But any land here is pretty good. That's not a bad one, is it? So we play this out. 2 mana and this. So we can't quite get there yet. So next turn we can go off at instant speed. So we can crop rotate for... well, we can just crop rotate the Dark Depths at that point, can't we? So there's the Urza's Saga. There's the Shadow Spear. Now, if they activate their Ancient Tomb to put the Shadow Spear on, yeah, that's not a problem. So this will put them up to 18, which is conveniently not 20. Alright, we just drew the Dark Depths. Okay. So we can Boseiju our opponent next turn as well. Because what we can do is we can crop rotate this into an Urborg or a Yavimaya. Probably Yavimaya. And then we use these 2 to activate here, which leaves us with a Lotus Petal, and this only costs 1 if our opponent has a... if we have a legend in play. We should be alright here. We do need to stop them gaining the extra life, though. But we can do that in a second. And I'd like to get this done before the Urza's Saga pops off, because I think that's where things can get troublesome for us. If they tap the Ancient Tomb, then we can just take the hit here. But we don't know if they're going to tap the Ancient Tomb just yet. Alright, so we will crop rotate this away. We'll go and get ourselves Yavimaya. We will make this. Our opponent will gain some life here if we don't do this. So that's our blocker. Are we supposed to get rid of this Shadow Spear and hope that our opponent has nothing? I think so. If our opponent's got a Swords to Plowshares, then we're not in great shape. And if this mana has just helped them win the game, then that's also not great. But this gives us the win next turn. Yep, okay, there's the win. The Boseiju plan worked out. So we lost the first game because we played a bit cagey, not knowing where our opponent was on. We played around Swords to Plowshares, not our opponent just generating infinite mana the next turn. But we've got a win on the board now, so we're 1 and 2. Let's see if we can rally the back half and get a positive record. Round 4. We do not have access to a Dark Depths. We cannot keep this hand. Yeah, this is a turn 2 2020. Sounds pretty good to me. So we can play this one out, so they can't even wasteland us on turn 1. And the next turn we play this Lotus Petal and this Dark Depths, cast the Hexmage. So we'll keep this. Probably getting rid of Sylvan Scrying here, I think. Let's play this Verdant Catacombs out. Are we playing Lotus Petal in case of Thalia? They're unlikely to play a Thalia turn 1 unless they're like an initiative deck. If that's the case, then that's not so big an issue. They're wasting their mana on that. I think we keep this in hand. If we get Trinisphere on turn 1, then so be it. Alright. A discard spell? No discard spell. Okay. A Pithing Needle. I'm certainly into that, but that's not really where we're at with the game right now. Let's play this Lotus Petal out. And we'll crack this for a swamp. You getting stifled? No. So this doesn't play around days, unfortunately. But here goes nothing. So our opponent is a wasteland deck, so we're definitely going to make the 2020 immediately. I think we do it in our opponent's upkeep. They might have sack effects, but they're very unlikely to be a main deck card. If they stifle us here, at least they can't do anything else with their turn. And we can just go and get the Thespian stage. Alright, so we have a 2020. That's what we came here to do. Do they have their one-off Brazen Borrower? Every time. Every time they have it. Alright. Sure. I think we'll Sylvan Scrying now because we don't want. We need another Dark Depths to win this game. And if they waste on one of these, it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world, and we can pay around a days if that happens. But they could discard the Sylvan Scrying from our hand, and that would be very bad. Now they have a Hymn to Turak, they can discard this. Right, there's a Brainstorm. They always have it, don't they? I bet they didn't have a Wasteland, but I think it's better to play around the 4 of in their deck than the 1 of in their deck. Even if you end up looking foolish in times like this. Alright, no Wasteland, that's good news. Flow Strand being cracked for another Watery Grave. They're nearly at the ability to play Death Shadow, which is definitely in their deck. This isn't a 5th Watery Grave, this is the core of their mana base here. Sometimes Doomsday will have a Watery Grave just because they want 5 Underground Seas. Opponent's gone for a Ponder there. They spent quite a while thinking about whether or not casting this. Right, so they found a Death Shadow in the end. So our life total is going to be under some duress. Let's try and cast a Pithing Needle on Wasteland. Let's deploy our Dark Depths now so that if we draw Thespian stage next turn we can go. Or if we draw some sort of crop rotation we can also go. Crop rotation, somewhat difficult to resolve against the Death Shadow player usually. We might be playing Elvish Spirit Guide to block with next turn. That's not really where I want to be, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes, right? There's the Wasteland our opponent has. Excellent. A Reanimate on their Street Wraith. Okay, sure. That makes their Death Shadow quite a large creature. Their Street Wraith is unblockable because we do have swamps. A downside of green-black that doesn't come up very often, but here it is. A Duress. We are not playing the Duress. We are casting Elvish Spirit Guide. As God intended, a 2/2 for 3. Here is my chump blocker. I'm going to Fatal Push it. Just going to deploy their little guy. There's a little guy. So we take 6 this turn and 6 the next turn. So even if we find the thing, we're probably dead here. Although we can block the Brazen Borrower, but we have to also block the Death Shadow. Just another layer of stuff to get through. So we chump block the Shadow. And then what? We don't really have any combat mechanics in terms of getting this one. We don't have any Right of Consumption either, but we need 2 cards to get that going. I'm just going to duress my opponent so I can see a bit more information, and then I'm going to scoop. Alright, let's see what they're working with over there. I just like a little bit more information in case I've got anything weird in there. I'm going to see a Brainstorm so we don't get to see anything cool. A Dress Down. Okay. That's what I wanted to do. They got the Anglers though, which is interesting. So, Death Shadow. Gave us a bit of a smearing there. To be fair, if they didn't have their Singleton Brazen Borrower in hand, we win that game. So, chances of us winning that game are pretty high. Let's go to sideboarding. So, Death's Shadow. I'm not actually going to have that much to interfere with that. So I'm more inclined to have these sorts of things than I am to have Leylines. And I would discard is going to be the main way we filter our opponent's hand. We need our Pithing Needles for Wasteland. So we're probably looking at trimming some of these Not of This World. I know we did get kind of rocked by them having the thing, but we need to keep the Ghost Quarter because this can hit a Wasteland if we end up in like a weird overlapping Wasteland situation. And then I think we're probably looking at trimming some fast mana, which is a bit awkward sometimes, but I think that's where we need to be right now. Trimming crop rotation in this matchup, you think, oh yeah, we'll trim some crop rotations because if our opponent is countering our spells, crop rotation is really bad. If we don't have crop rotation, our win percentage of just being able to actually win the game and get our pieces goes down considerably. So we kind of have to keep these. So our Abrupt Decays will deal with blockers so that we can make sure that we kill him in a single hit. And they'll also buy us some extra time. They'll buy us more time than the Leylines of the Void will. I think Death Shadow is actually one of, if not the best deck in Legacy right now. I think it's massively underrated by a lot of people. But let's hope we can turn the tables on them. Alright. What does our opening hand do? We have a Pithing Needle on Wasteland. That's very important that it resolves. But then we can punch a hole through to make sure this crop rotation resolves. We're going to need more stuff. I think we can mulligan this one. What does this one do? We can Sylvan Scrying pretty early on. I think we have to Sylvan Scrying on turn 1 to stop our opponent from being able to Thoughtseize away our Sylvan Scrying. So we'll keep... I think we get rid of the Sylvan Scrying so that we can at least pay around... What do we get rid of this? Yeah, actually, we'll get rid of Spirit Guide right now. We don't have to worry about days on turn 1. So this can go and get us a Swamp. And we can use this for green mana next turn if this gets countered or whatever. So here we go. Sylvan Scrying. Hook me up. We will get our Dark Depths. So another Lotus Petal does give us a potential to make a 20/20 next turn. But we're probably on the slow boat here. Alright, so they have a Wasteland. That's important to note. Interesting. Very interesting. We're going to play this Bayou out and try and bait our opponent's Wasteland here. Okay, so that just resolved. Interesting. What are we supposed to get? I think we get the Ghost Quarter here. This allows us to deal with our opponent's Wasteland so we can drop our threat. This might incentivize our opponent to use their Wasteland, which is kind of annoying, but depends if they want the mana from the Ghost Quarter. Well, they might not even have any basics. Right, so we're going to lose our Hexmage here, which is the downside of us getting the Dark Depths. But we have to work through the Wasteland. We're just going to draw a Pithing Needle this turn, aren't we? Feel it in my bones. We did not draw a Pithing Needle this turn. So, we can deploy this Verdant Catacombs, or we can deploy this Ghost Quarter. I think we'll deploy the Ghost Quarter. Just gives us the ability to hit the Wasteland when we need to. If our opponent ever taps this Wasteland, then we can get rid of it without losing one of our lands. But I suspect they might be more interested in taking our land out than getting a land out of their deck, because they might not even have any basics. There's a Misty Rainforest, cracking the Misty Rainforest. There's a Watery Grave, they're on 15. A Null Rod. Okay. Like, that does shut down the one card in our hand, which is interesting to me. Not seen Death Shadow players bring in Null Rod against me before. Boseiju. Right, we'll play our Verdant Catacombs. We're now just trying to find the other half of our combo. This is the problem with Death Shadow. It has so many layers of interactions. We had the Wasteland, so we're like, okay, so we'll get the thing to beat the Wasteland. And they have the Thoughtseize, which then takes the thing. So now we need to find the other half of our combos. It's just multiplying layers of permission that we have to get through. The disruption is very strong. Pretty good showcase of why I like the Death Shadow deck so much. Another Wasteland. Alright. We do have both of them covered, technically speaking. But I don't really want to have to do that. A Dark Depths. Now, the problem with playing this out to get rid of one of the Wastelands is that our opponent might have Surgical Extraction. Considering we don't really have anything going on, I think we're just going to pass here. If we can find a Pithing Needle, or if we find the other half of the combo, then maybe we'll start baiting things out using the Dark Depths. Sure. So now they've got a threat that's going to force us into having to act soon. We can't also Boseiju our own artifact. It only is things opponents controls. We can't play the Lotus Petal and then use this as like a bad Rampant Growth. A Thoughtseize. Sure. This lowers their life total for Death Shadow, so I don't even mind the fact that it hurts them. And again, we only deal damage in chunks of 20. So as long as their life total is either anything from 1 to 20 is basically the same. Okay, we're going to go and get our basic forest out here. Actually, are we going to? No, we'll get the Bayou out here. See if we can pressure them into wastelanding, because we need multiple black sources in case we draw a Hexmage. A Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. How do I feel about that one? Not great. I think we'll play it out though. The more lands we have in play, the easier it's going to be for us to do our thing. Baleful Strix, yep. That's the thing that we can blow up if we need to. But it's just more and more pieces getting in our way. That does change the clock by 1 turn as well. A Thespian's Stage. So now that we have some of the pieces, I'm tempted to try and bait our opponent out. Now if we get hit with a Surgical Extraction, we will lose this game. But we kind of need to do something here. So we're going to do this and see if we can bait out the Wasteland. Now if they have a Surgical Extraction, like I said, we will lose. Our opponent played out their Brazen Borrower, so they're clearly in a pretty good position over there. We have the Boseiju to get rid of the Baleful Strix, so we can kill in 1 hit. That's the thing we need to do. Let's try and get this Wasteland out of our opponent's pool of resources. I'm going to target our Dark Depths. Sure. Are you Boseijuing their Wasteland? I think so. I'm probably going to lose the Yavimaya here, because this represents 2 mana, because it turns the Dark Depths into a mana source. They might want this to become a land for them. They might not have any basics, which is why they're not interested in the Ghost Quarter. But this lets them get anything with a basic type, so they can go and get an Underground Sea. Oh, they're floating. That's kind of scarier. Oh dear. What are they getting? Okay, they won't get anything with it, sure. So we start off with a Duress here. We've nearly navigated our way through all of this. Let's see how scary their hand is. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the Thespian Stage and turn it into a swamp straight away, so they don't get a chance to wasteland it. Alright, we're going to see a Brainstorm here to protect their hand. Dress Down, Snuff Out, Fatal Push. The Dress Down is the thing that actually stops us here, right? Because that can make our guy an ordinary guy, and then they can Death Touch it away or Fatal Push it away. So the Dress Down's the one that's got to go. Okay, so we'll play this. We'll immediately turn it into a swamp. We'll pass a turn. So we take 4, and then we can make a 20/20 that our opponent, at present, can't interact with. It's been a weird grindy one, this. A Brainstorm off the top is a very good hit from our opponent there. So these are things they could have, but I imagine they're going to get rid of some number of days. They know we have this Dark Depths in hand, I believe, from an earlier Thoughtseize. They have a Wasteland, they can still get us here. There's a Death Shadow. It's a little guy. So we get cracked for 4 here. And then we have to make the Marit on defense. Reanimate Vampire Hexmage. Okay, they're just getting enough guys so they can go wide here. So we go to 4, then we can't even block everything next turn. So I think they've got us here unless the top card of our library is an Abrupt Decay. That's not an Abrupt Decay. I guess we can hope that our opponent makes a mistake. But we are in Dead Town, I think. Attack with everything we lose here. Unless they make some sort of mistake and try and Thespian Stage, try and get rid of our, remove the counters for us for some reason. No, they haven't made the mistake here. So we block here, we take 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're dead. Yeah, we had to work through a lot. I feel particularly upset about the first one because they had their Singleton Brazen Borrower. And we played around the Wasteland, but it was no good. Now, if we didn't make our guy then, and we just sort of sat on the Hexmage, our opponent has removal that can force us to do it at end of turn. And they still had the Brazen Borrower, right? Which meant that they could get rid of our guy whenever we made it. So it's right to make the guy there, but there is a small percentage of games where that's not going to work out. Obviously, with all their cantrips and stuff, they're more likely to find their Brazen Borrow as the game goes on. So again, you want to get out ahead and do it. But yeah, we're having a real bad time in the league today. So we are 1-3. A very poor showing. Let's see if we can get the pity play points of a 2-3. Alright, so this is our opening hand for the first game. We're going to keep this one because we can play out the Pithing Needle. We can then cycle this into an Urborg and play the turn 2 Dark Depths. We're also on the draw, so we might have some more land or disruption coming. City of Traitors. Is this going to be a Chalice of the Void? That does hamper us a little bit. Or does it, I guess? I'll have an Urborg, please. This deck is probably not going to have a lot of ways of interacting with a 2020. Do I think our opponent's going to have a way of interacting with this right now? I don't think so. I think we're going to make it end of turn. There's a Lotus Petal. Alright, they're scooping it up. We don't really know what our opponent's playing. So I'm going to assume that these Abrupt Decays are going to be good. I think that's a pretty reasonable one. Not of this world is probably not that necessary. And these Pithing Needles can probably get shaved at least. If they are a white deck, we might want these Steely Resolves. And we might want the Not of This Worlds. But it's Trinisphere's world and we're living in it potentially. So without more information, I don't know what we're supposed to have. So we could always hedge a little bit and get rid of these needles and bring in something like Not of This World. Is that going to be better than the Steely Resolves? Probably not. We'll try a couple of Steely Resolves. Again, I don't know what our opponent's necessarily playing. We might want the Null Rod Collector Ouphe. We just don't know. On the play, Collector Ouphe against some of these decks that are trying to play stuff down is okay, but you only have so many slots to play with. You're kind of just tweaking your protection spells to be the most useful. This does not have access to a 2020. We will mulligan this. This does have access to a 2020. Alright, we'll keep this one and we'll get rid of the it's our second mana source. Guess we'll get rid of the Steely Resolve and hope they're not playing white. We have one of our lands for the purposes of casting an Abrupt Decay if we need to. Okay, a Chrome Mox. What are you going to put under it? Is it a red card or a white card? It's a red card. Okay, so we could be looking at classic Blood Moony type stuff. Okay, this isn't actually that bad for us. We have the Sylvan Scrying if we need it. We'll play out a Mountain. These sorts of matchups are ones I quite like because they have one thing that they're trying to do against you. Okay, so they are red-white initiative, perhaps. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so we have this Verdant Catacombs that can't actually crack for a fetch right now. So I think we will play out this Catacombs. And just keep it going. So we can Sylvan Scrying for something, but that will cost us our Lotus Petal. So we kind of want to use our Lotus Petal for Abrupt Decay. We have 4 of them in our deck. On the play, this matchup's even better because we get a bunch of discard as well. But we can afford to take some beats here for a little bit. It's if they deploy a follow-up threat that changes the clock. Winota. That definitely changes the clock a little bit. An Elvish Spirit Guide. We're pretty close. We do need an Abrupt Decay here. I think we're just going to keep playing out lands. We don't want to show our opponent the fast mana necessarily. Right, they've got one of the little goblins that throws out more goblins, and they can do some real damage to us here. But they're just going to hit us for 6. So if they don't commit anything else to the board, then we get another 2 turns. An Abrupt Decay. So that's one of the things we wanted. So this seems fine to me. I think we play this out, and then we will cast Abrupt Decay targeting this. So this is black, this is green. Goodbye, enemy card. Immediately crack this for a basic forest, and we will Sylvan Scrying for Dark Depths. We'll play our Dark Depths. We'll deploy our Vampire Hexmage. We will pass the turn. Solitude. Interesting choice. I'm going to target our Hexmage. In response, I will make a 2020. This means they might have another Solitude. I think that's probably what it means. Okay, a Plow. So that's bought us a bunch of time. But this Solitude is going to trigger the Winota, so it might not be that much time. No hits. Sure. So, opponent's got one card in hand. Let's have a look at it. It's another Winota. Alright. We will go and find ourselves a Dark Depths. We'll play out our Dark Depths now. This way, if we draw the Thespian stage, we can make it next turn. If we draw any sort of tutor, we can play it next turn. Our opponent will gain some life here, though. We found a Seasoned Dungeoneer. Okay, that's going to be annoying next turn, that's for sure. Just puts them up to 22. So if they activate the Ancient Tomb, it puts them down to 20, but they're probably going to get another hit with this before we do anything. A Steely Resolve. I don't really want our opponent to see that card, so I'm not going to play it out. This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 if they forge on their guy. And then we'll scoop it up. They are not forging on their guy. Okay, so we might get another turn. Not sure if we're going to be able to do anything. We might as well see more of our opponent's deck while we have the option. We could just die to the Winota trigger as well. Certainly within the realms of possibility. Makes of the Moon. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Sure. That'll do us. So they've shown us they've got a bunch of white stuff and the Magus. So, we would like the Steely Resolve here. And I don't know if these Duresses are actually going to be where we want to be. So we'll take these Duresses out. Get in 2 Not of This Worlds. And we'll have a Collector Ouphe on the play. Want a Collector Ouphe? Null Rod's going to be harder for them to answer, isn't it? Go for the Null Rod here. I'm trying to think, is there anything with Pithing Needle? I don't think these decks run the Blinky card. Right. We'll go like this. We can keep this, I guess. So we're incentivized this turn to cast a Sylvan Scrying for a basic land. And I think I want a forest. Because we don't get a chance to do that again. Ancient Tomb. Lotus Petal. We get Blood Moon straight away? Feels like it. Fail the Mirror Break. Alright, that's not a Blood Moon, is it? A Crop Rotation. Alright, I think we'll make our... we're not going to make the guy this turn. We're going to wait till next turn and use the Crop Rotation to protect it. Unless they play something like a Blood Moon now. Cavern of Souls. So we have to make this now. Have they got Solitude? If they let us untap and play the Forest, then we can beat a Solitude. Can't beat 2 Solitudes. We can't beat the Plough. Right, they have the Plough. Sure. Alright. It's going to be a little bit tough for us here. Or not, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll play out our Forest here. So we just need an Abrupt Decay. And then we can make Marit Lage as well. Another Fable, sure. So I think we crop rotate this Urborg into a Dark Depths. It'll come in with no counters. As soon as we get to kill the Magus, we're all good. That doesn't kill the Magus, does it? Pass Thespian stage and pass. We just need to draw the Abrupt Decay. We've got a few turns to do it. We do have the added problem of the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, which can copy the Magus for a turn, but that's not the end of the world. This is Winota. This will be pretty bad for us if it is. Alright, they have the Winota. Sure. Looks like it's going to be a bad time for us in Black-Green Depths Town. Right, they're not attacking with the Magus because they're scared, which is fair enough. Let's see how bad this Winota is. I don't think we can die this turn from 34. But, okay, a second Magus is a problem. A Seasoned Dungeoneer. A third Magus. Alright, I don't think we're going to win this game now. Yeah, this is going to be tough to do anything. We'll let our opponent have their nice big windmill turn with their Winota. Let them have their nice screenshot. Maybe they'll get the 4 of a kind Magus. There's a Rabble Master. Oh, they're going to get loads of goblins this turn. Right, we're definitely dead this turn, but I want our opponent to have a nice little screenshot. There's Chaos Adventurer. Quite a lot of nonsense going on over there. Alright. So there we are. We're dead. Opponent put a lot of things into play. So yeah, we went 1-4 this league. Let's talk about the deck. So today was the single worst league I've ever played with Green Black Depths. I played this deck a lot of times. Things really didn't come together for us, right? So there's definitely an element of bad luck in there, which I'll talk about. So the Brazen Borrower, Singleton Brazen Borrower out of our Death Shadow player was a real jam up for sure. And not knowing what our opponent was playing in that last round meant that we didn't fully sideboard correctly for the second game, which we then lost, where we could have maybe had in some Steely Resolves and Not of This World, or just more stuff to interact with the way our opponent was trying to stop us, but we just didn't know. So we kind of got a bit rocked like that. And we played against the Show and Tell decks, the Show and Tell deck, which is not necessarily a bad matchup, I don't think, but if they have the Emrakul lines, then you're in trouble. Like if they Show and Tell an Emrakul, you can quite often beat that, but it was the Omniscience into Emrakul, and then it was the Sneak Attack into Emrakul. These things caused us a lot of trouble. So we did get a little bit unfortunate, but it's not entirely just us having a bad time. Now, we are a deck that is prone to variance. We're trying to cobble together a combo and go off in the early turns. We don't have a lot of fixing. We got 8 shooters, but we don't have any way of finding more like disruption and stuff. We're not like a bauble deck, so we can't cycle through a bunch of stuff. So we are a little bit sort of heart on our sleeve with how we're playing the deck, because that's just the nature of Green Black Turbodepths. Now, that wasn't such a deal back in Initiative Winter. In Initiative Winter, I found this deck to be really strong. I was playing 4 Not of This World in the main deck, and I had the 3 Steely Resolves in the sideboard, so we had less Duress back then. And I just found this deck just smashed through what was good in the meta at the time. Like, you beat Delver quite handily, you beat Initiative most of the time. You know, and those are kind of like the main decks that people are playing. Like the Mono Black Dalthy Helm decks, you could beat those quite handily too. So it was quite well positioned. Now things are different. The metagame is kind of all over the place in a lot of ways. Nobody's really risen to the top as like the best deck. So, you know, you got your Delvers, you got your Death Shadows, you got your Breakfast decks. Oh, another thing, Breakfast was really good in Initiative Winter, and this deck absolutely hammers Breakfast. So that deck falling apart. It was like the 3rd most played deck or the 2nd most played deck at one point during Initiative Winter, but now it's sort of dropped down again. So you've got a lot more decks to play, which means we have a lot more problems that we need to answer. So back then it was like, okay, we just have these Not of This Worlds and we just do it and it's fine. Whereas now we kind of have to knit together the right answers, which does make our deck weaker in the format now than it was before. Which, you know, is a bit sad because I do really like this deck. But your deck's rarely going to be good all the time in Legacy, and things are shifting as time goes by. Especially, we've got the Lord of the Rings set coming out very soon, which is going to change Legacy a fair bit because there's a few Legacy playables in there. And I think that's going to impact the format. Also, once we finally get the Warhammer cards and the Unfinity cards on Magic Online, that's going to change the format because people actually be able to play lots of games with them instead of just paper ones. And like Painter gets the Chaos Defiler thing, and there's a lot of changes that happen once we actually get more cards on Magic Online. So I don't think, right at this moment, I don't think Green Black Depths is in a great spot, but it's an intrinsically powerful deck, right? We're doing a very strong thing of making a massive guy really early and swinging with it. And you can just win games, right? This deck is very potent at winning games. Today, not so much necessarily, but this is a deck that you can play in a variety of metagames, and you know you're still going to win some games, even though it's not that well positioned right now. What I do think is quite well positioned now are the slower depth decks, so your Landsy style decks that sort of want to churn and grind value and things. I know the Sphere of Resistance Lands deck is doing quite well at the moment. And a few people are jamming that. I think that is probably where I would look at if you want to play your 2020s at the moment. Naya Depths is pretty reasonable again as well. That deck is quite different to this. It's got a lot more lines it can take. It's not just a fully dedicated combo deck. It's got a reasonable beatdown plan via like Knights of the Reliquary and the Little Elves and things. But what I will do, I think, moving forward, is I'm going to try and play some green-black mid-rangey depths. So what people used to call slow depths rather than lands, which, you know, had things like Dark Confident and stuff like that back in the day. So I'm going to try and tinker with that because, you know me, I love to make 2020s and I want to keep making 2020s, so we're going to work on that a little bit. Also, if you're interested, there is an article going up on my Patreon very soon about Rainbow Depths, sort of the extended theory about where Rainbow Depths sits in the format right now. Rainbow Depths might actually be better positioned than Green Black Depths right at this precise moment in time, but that's going to change when the Lord of the Rings stuff hits, I would imagine. But the reason people play Rainbow Depths is because you get better sideboard cards, because you get sideboard cards of all colours. But the downside is you can't reliably cast Abrupt Decay as your answer to Magus of the Moon and things like that, so you need to split your answers. So the article I've written goes in great depth about what you should be playing in your main deck in Rainbow Depths and what your sideboard should look like and what you shouldn't try and do. Because I think a lot of people with Rainbow Depths, they think, oh, I'm playing all these colours, I should play these bad cards like Stifle, and I don't think that's right personally when Pithing Needle answers multiples of the same permanent and it doesn't cost you mana on turns you're trying to do stuff. So it's just a lot more concise way of dealing with your problems. So I think the main deck here is pretty much where I think you should be on Rainbow Depths as well. Obviously, a different mana base. But when it comes to the sideboard, that's where the Rainbow Depths differs quite a bit because you get a lot of other tools. And if you're interested to learn more about that, it is going up on my Patreon very soon. It might even already be up by the time this video goes out. I'm not sure. So if you're interested, why not do that? It's in my 2020 Specialist tier, which also has an in-depth guide to this deck that I played today, which you may not want to play after seeing today, but there's plenty of videos where I've done well with it as well. And it is a good deck, but I think it's got some matchups that are a little bit sketchy right now, and we're kind of having to thread the needle with the cards we're playing a little bit because the format is so diverse and wide right now, which is a good thing at the end of the day, right? We want Legacy to be a diverse and healthy format, even if it makes us slightly weaker in some respects. Alright, I think I've rambled on quite enough now. Remember to like, comment and subscribe. And if you want to share my content anywhere, that really helps me out. My sort of new subscriber and viewer count has sort of dropped a bit lately. So if you could share my stuff to like Reddit and things like that, that'd be really great. And I really appreciate that. Okay, thank you very much for watching and goodbye.